Welcome to a deep dive, I guess you could call it, into this world that surrounds us constantly, but I don't think we very often stop to think about just the power of it.
Yeah.
Sound, and you are interested in how specific frequencies, particularly this 432 hertz tuning, and also binaural beats, how those things affect us. And I think we have a really great place to start with this YouTube interview, and it features this sound researcher, Ricardo Tristano Tuis.
Right.
So let's unlock some of his key insights here and explore this fascinating connection between sound and also our brains and even the planet Earth itself. And we'll see what we can learn about what makes 432 hertz so intriguing.
Yeah, what's really striking to me about Dewis's work is that he approaches sound as not just something we hear, but as a force, almost as if sound is an invisible architecture that's shaping our reality.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, he uses a really powerful analogy and he compares the human body to this delicate glass that can be shattered by sound, just like a singer hitting that perfect note.
Oh, yeah.
It makes you realize how potent those sound waves are.
Absolutely, and that analogy becomes even more thought-provoking when you consider something like urban noise pollution, which is something that we encounter every day.
Right.
Tuis refers to this as a sonic weapon that's constantly bombarding our nervous system.
Wow.
It's kind of like living in a low-grade state of siege
Yeah.
that we barely even notice.
I can definitely relate to that, like that kind of frazzled feeling you get after spending too much time in a really noisy environment.
Oh, for sure.
But it's not just random noise that has this power, right? I mean, music is a more structured form of sound, I guess, and it's been used to influence us for a really long time.
Yeah, precisely. And, Tuis points to the unsettling example of what was known as trench music that the U.S. military used to employ.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was designed with specific rhythms and tones to amplify aggression and prepare soldiers for combat.
Wow, that's a stark reminder that music can be more than just enjoyable. It can be a tool or even a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
It influences our emotions and actions.
Absolutely.
But then on the flip side, Tuis also argues for the potential for good in music. He suggests that it should be recognized as a science again.
Right.
And he mentions the quadrivium, this ancient system that placed music alongside mathematics and geometry and astronomy.
That's right. And the science does back him up because when we listen to music, it actually activates more areas of the brain simultaneously than almost any other activity that we do.
Wow.
So we're talking about full brain workout here, not just passive listening.
And so that brings us a little bit closer to the 432 hertz question, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If different areas of the brain are lighting up with music, then certain frequencies could be hitting different buttons in our mental and physical experience.
Exactly. Tuis believes that different frequencies trigger distinct emotional and physiological responses, suggesting that the tuning of the music might be just as important as the notes themselves.
So it's not just about whether the music sounds good, it's about whether it resonates with our system in a beneficial way.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Which kind of leads us perfectly into Tuis's concept of neurosound programming.
Yeah, this is where things get really interesting. Neurosound programming is a technique that Tuis developed based on decades of research, and he uses these precisely crafted soundscapes that include specific frequencies and binaural beats to essentially guide the listener's brainwave activity.
Okay, hold on, back up for a sec. Before we get too deep into neurosound programming, can you just break down what binaural beats are for our listener?
Of course, imagine you're wearing headphones,
Okay.
and each ear receives a slightly different frequency.
Okay.
Your brain, in an attempt to make sense of this,
Right.
creates a third phantom frequency.
Hmm.
That's the binaural beat.
So it's not actually a sound out there in the world. It's something that our brain generates on its own.
Yeah,
That's kind of like an auditory illusion.
that's a great way to put it. And the fascinating part is that these phantom beats can actually influence our brainwave patterns. Yeah, and depending on the frequencies used, binaural beats can induce relaxation, promote focus, and even some argue they can alter consciousness.
That's where this whole digital drugs controversy comes in, right?
Exactly.
People are worried that they are this shortcut to these altered states, kind of bypassing the work of traditional practices like meditation and things like that.
Right, and Tsoukalos addresses that directly because he argues that binaural beats are not creating anything artificial. They're simply leveraging our brain's natural ability to resonate with sound.
I see.
He sees it as a tool like any other that can be used responsibly or
So
irresponsibly.
like fire.
Right.
It can cook your food or it can burn your house down.
Exactly.
It's all how you use it.
Exactly. And that brings us to another really fascinating aspect of Tuis's work, and that's the Schumann resonance.
Okay, I've heard about this. It's like the Earth's own background hum, right?
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Technically, it's a set of frequencies generated by lightning discharges within the Earth's atmosphere, and
Mm.
it's constantly there, but we usually don't perceive it consciously.
So what makes this relevant to our deep dive?
Well, Tuis proposes this really fascinating link between the Schumann resonance and our brains.
Okay.
He refers to it as the Earth's heartbeat, and he believes that it influences our brainwave activity and even our very consciousness.
Wait, are you saying that our brains are synced up to the planet's electromagnetic field?
That's essentially what Tuis is suggesting.
Wow.
And here's a really intriguing detail. The fundamental frequency of the Schumann resonance is 7.83 hertz.
Okay.
Does that number sound familiar?
Not really ringing a bell.
It's remarkably close to the frequency of the human brain when we're in a state of deep relaxation, like during meditation or sleep.
No way. So you're telling me we've got this constant, subtle hum vibrating at almost the same frequency as our relaxed brainwaves.
Yeah,
That's pretty mind-blowing.
it is. And there's even more to it. An experiment was conducted where volunteers were isolated from the Schumann resonance.
Oh, wow. And what happened?
They started to experience negative health effects, things
Yeah.
like headaches, mood swings,
Yeah.
difficulty sleeping.
Oh.
Yeah, it was as if their bodies were missing this vital element of their environment.
That's a powerful demonstration of how interconnected we are to our surroundings.
It is.
It's like our bodies need that earthly hum to function properly.
That's precisely what Tuis's research suggests, and he takes it even further, connecting the Schumann resonance to the concept of Gaia,
Okay.
the idea of Earth as this living being. He believes that the resonance reflects the planet's own energy field and consciousness, which interacts with our own.
Okay, now we're getting into some deep waters here.
Right.
This is almost like venturing into the realm of spirituality.
Tuis doesn't shy away from that. He even talks about 3 levels of Earth's energy telluric coming from the Earth's core atmospheric, generated by weather patterns, and cosmic emanating from the sun and the stars. And he believes that the Schumann resonance is this bridge between these energies and human consciousness.
That's definitely a whole other deep dive we could explore sometime. But let's bring it back to something that our listeners specifically wanted to explore,
Yeah.
and that's binaural beats.
Right now that we understand a little bit more about how our brains interact with these frequencies, we can start to grasp how binaural beats might be used to influence our mental and physical states.
Okay, I'm with you.
All right,
So we've got these binaural beats, which our brain kind of conjures up from these two different frequencies,
right.
and they can kind of nudge our brain waves in specific directions.
That's right.
But how does that translate into neurosound programming? What's actually going on there?
Well, think of it like composing a symphony,
Yeah.
but instead of notes, we're using these precisely calibrated sound frequencies, including these binaural beats,
I see.
to create a specific effect on the listener's brain.
So it's like a sonic recipe designed to shift your brain into a desired state, whether it's relaxation or focus or something else entirely.
Exactly. And this is where Tuis's deep understanding of sound's effects on the brain really comes into play, because he combines different frequencies and rhythms and even natural soundscapes to create these immersive experiences.
Can you give me an example of what that might sound like?
Sure, imagine you're listening to a neurosound program that is designed for deep relaxation. You might hear the gentle sounds of rain falling layered with calming nature sounds, all infused with binaural beats tuned to the brainwave frequencies that are associated with relaxation.
I can already feel myself getting calmer just thinking about that.
Yeah.
But how does he actually know what frequencies to use? Is this all based on his research?
Yeah, it is. He spent decades studying the effects of specific frequencies on things like brainwave activity, heart rate variability, even hormonal responses.
Wow.
This is a very scientific approach, even though the results might seem almost magical to the listener.
Right, because it's not just about feeling relaxed. There are measurable physiological changes happening,
Yeah,
which is why some people see this as a really powerful tool for therapeutic applications.
absolutely. Tuis believes that neurosound programming has this enormous potential for addressing a wide range of issues, from anxiety and insomnia to learning difficulties and even chronic pain management.
Wow, that's a pretty impressive range. But before we get too carried away with the potential benefits here, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, and that's that digital drug concern.
Okay.
Is there any risk involved in using neurosound programming?
It's a valid concern, just like any powerful tool. It's essential to use it responsibly and ethically.
Yeah.
Tuis himself emphasizes the importance of careful research and responsible application, and he strongly cautions against using neurosound programming for recreational purposes or trying to induce these extreme altered states.
So it's not about chasing highs or trying to escape reality.
Yeah.
It's about harnessing the power of sound to support well-being in a balanced and mindful way.
Exactly. And it's worth noting that Tuis's work is part of this larger movement within sound therapy and neuroscience, exploring the potential of sound to heal and enhance human potential.
Okay, so I'm curious how our listener could start incorporating these ideas into their life. What are some practical ways that they could do that?
Well, Tuis offers a wealth of practical advice, and some of it is surprisingly simple. For instance, he stresses the importance of being more mindful of our everyday soundscape.
Soundscape. So you mean like paying attention to the sounds that are around us?
Precisely. We often go through our days bombarded by noise without really noticing its effect.
Yeah.
But he suggests making a conscious effort to reduce unnecessary noise pollution.
Okay.
So turn off the TV when you're not watching it, use noise-canceling headphones when you need to focus, and seek out moments of quiet to give your ears a break.
You know what? I'm definitely guilty of having the TV on in the background, even when I'm not really paying attention.
I think we all are.
Maybe that's contributing to my feeling stressed out sometimes.
It's certainly possible our brains are constantly processing sound, even when we're not consciously aware of it. So creating a calmer sonic environment can have a profound impact on our well-being.
Okay, what else does he suggest?
He also encourages listening to music at moderate volumes. It's tempting to crank up the volume, but that can lead to auditory fatigue and even hearing damage over time. It's like anything else, moderation is key.
That makes sense. What about silence?
Right.
I know he emphasizes the importance of that, but in our always-on world, it can be hard to find.
It is a challenge, but it's worth the effort.
Yeah.
Even short periods of silence can be incredibly restorative. Toya sees silence as a way to reset our nervous systems, give our ears a break, and reconnect with our inner stillness.
Like hitting the pause button on the world for a few moments.
Exactly.
I can see the value in that. Are there any specific types of music or sounds that he recommends?
He has some interesting observations about that. He cautions against excessive exposure to bass frequencies, which are often prominent in modern music.
Really? I always thought a good bass line was just, well, good. What's wrong with bass?
Well, Tuis believes that too much bass can be overstimulating and disruptive to our natural rhythms.
Ah,
It's not that all bass is bad,
right.
but he suggests being mindful of its effects. And instead, he recommends favoring instruments with higher frequencies, like the violin, which he sees as more harmonious with our bodies.
That's interesting. I do find myself drawn to music with a lot of string instruments, like classical or folk music,
Yeah.
and it definitely feels more calming and uplifting.
And that's a perfect example of how paying attention to our own responses to sound can guide us towards choices that support our well-being.
Right.
We each have our own unique sonic preferences.
Right.
And what feels good to one person might not feel good to another.
Yeah.
It's about finding what resonates with you.
Right. It's about tuning into ourselves, almost literally.
Yeah.
Speaking of tuning, we haven't yet gotten to the 432 hertz question
Right.
that initially sparked this whole deep dive.
Now,
It seems like everything that we've talked about so far connects to this idea. So how does Tulis bring all of this together with the 432 hertz tuning?
well, remember the Schumann resonance and how its fundamental frequency is surprisingly close to our brain waves in a relaxed state.
Yeah.
Tuis connects this to the 432 hertz tuning, suggesting that it's a frequency that resonates with both our bodies and the Earth itself.
Okay. I'm intrigued. How does he make that connection?
There's this fascinating calculation. If you multiply the fundamental Schumann resonance frequency, 7.83 hertz, by 54, you get a number very close to 432 hertz.
Hold on. You're saying there's a mathematical link between the Earth's natural resonance and this specific musical tuning.
Yeah,
That's pretty mind-blowing.
it is. And while this might seem like a coincidence to some, Tuis sees it as evidence of this deeper harmonic relationship between humans and the planet.
So it's like 432 hertz is a kind of sonic bridge between our inner world and the Earth's own vibrations.
That's one way to interpret it. And many people who listen to music tuned to 432 hertz report that it feels softer, more calming, and more resonant than music tuned to the standard 440 hertz.
Which makes sense if it's aligning more closely with our natural frequencies and the Earth's own resonance.
Exactly. And Tuis even goes so far as to suggest that the 440 hertz standard, which is what most music is tuned to today,
Yeah.
might have been chosen for reasons that weren't entirely harmonious.
Okay, I'm sensing a conspiracy theory here. What does he mean by that?
Well, he doesn't delve into full-blown conspiracy theory territory, but he does raise some intriguing questions.
Okay.
He points out that the 440 Hz standard was adopted relatively recently,
Uh-huh.
and he wonders if it might have been chosen for its ability to stimulate certain emotional states or even influence behavior.
So you're saying that he suspects that the standard tuning that we're all accustomed to might be subtly pushing certain buttons in our psyche.
That's what he proposes.
Yeah.
He believes it's worth considering the possibility that sound, and particularly music, can be used as a tool for social engineering, whether consciously or unconsciously.
Wow, that's a pretty heavy thought. So, what does he suggest we do about it? Are we all doomed to be manipulated by these subliminal sonic frequencies?
Not necessarily. Tuis's message isn't one of fear or paranoia, it's about awareness and empowerment.
Okay.
By understanding how sound affects us, we can make more conscious choices about the sounds that we surround ourselves with.
Right. It's about taking back control of our own soundscape and choosing music and sounds that support our well-being.
Exactly, and he suggests exploring different tunings, like 432 Hz, and experimenting with neurosound programming as ways to reclaim our sonic sovereignty.
Okay. I have to admit, I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed by all this information.
It is a lot to take in.
We've covered so much ground noise pollution, the science of music, the Schumann Resonance binaural beats neurosound programming, the 440 hertz conspiracy, and now the 432 hertz alternative. It's
Yeah.
a lot to process.
It is, but it's all interconnected.
Right.
And the key takeaway here is that sound is a far more powerful force than we often realize, and it shapes our reality in profound ways, whether we're aware of it or not.
So what does this all mean for our listener
Yeah.
who came to us with this interest in specific frequencies and their effects?
Right.
What's the big picture message here?
I think the message is this sound is a language, and like any language, it could be used to communicate, to heal, to inspire,
Yeah.
but also to manipulate and control.
Right.
By learning to understand this language, by becoming more fluent in the world of sound, we can unlock its potential to enrich our lives and expand our consciousness.
That's beautifully put. It's not just about listening to music, it's about listening to life itself in a whole new way.
Exactly. And it starts with awareness, by simply paying more attention to the sounds around us.
Right.
By noticing how different sounds make us feel, we can begin to cultivate this more conscious relationship with this powerful force that's always shaping our reality.
It feels like we've gone from Sound 101 to a graduate seminar in the span of a few minutes, but in a good way.
I know, right?
It's making me rethink how much I take sound for granted.
Yeah, it's so ubiquitous that it's easy to tune it out, both literally and figuratively.
Right?
But the more we understand about sound, the more we realize that it's not just a backdrop to our lives, it's really interwoven with our very being.
And that brings us back to our listener and their interest in these specific frequencies. Knowing what we know now, where would you suggest they go from here?
Well, they've already taken the first step, haven't they?
Yeah.
They're curious, they're seeking knowledge, they're diving deep into this fascinating world that's the most important ingredient.
So what are some practical steps that they could take?
Well, experimentation is key.
Yeah.
They mentioned an interest in 432 hertz music, and there's a whole world of music tuned to this frequency out there.
Yeah.
Give it a listen. See how it feels compared to the standard 440 hertz tuning.
Yeah.
Pay attention not just to the sound, but to how it affects your body, your mood, your energy levels.
Like a personal science experiment with your own inner world.
Exactly. And if they're feeling adventurous, they could explore the world of binaural beats.
Oh, yeah.
There are countless recordings and apps available. Start with reputable sources and gradually explore different frequencies and their effects. Always listen at a comfortable volume and pay attention to your body's signals.
What about neurosound programming? It sounds intriguing, but also a little intimidating. Where would you even begin with that?
There are a growing number of resources available, from guided meditations to full-fledged neurosound programs. Tuis himself offers courses and workshops, but there are other practitioners and researchers exploring this field as well. So do some research, read reviews, and find what resonates with you.
So it's a journey of discovery, not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Exactly. And the most important thing is to approach it with an open mind, a sense of curiosity, and a willingness to listen both to the sounds themselves and to your own inner responses.
I love that it's like we're not just learning about sound, we're learning to listen in a whole new way.
And that's ultimately what Tui's work invites us to do, to become more conscious listeners, to recognize the power of sound, and to harness it in ways that support our well-being and expand our awareness.
It's like opening our ears to a whole new dimension of reality, and who knows what wonders we might discover there. Well, hey, that wraps up our deep dive into this fascinating world of sound and the brain.
Yeah.
It's been a real ear opener, to say the least.
It has been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to explore the power of sound in your own life. Until next time, keep listening.